Hi, so today we're going to look a little bit more closely at the ways in which we can craft our ideas into song lyrics. Now, before we get going into the actual structures that might be useful to us, we're going to look a little bit at work that we've done already and where we might take that. So the first thing is to look at all that material that we've got, whether it's in our head or on those pieces of paper or the cut up pieces of newspaper or whatever it is, and do two things. First of all, extract a working title, a hooky sequence of words, a phrase, something that we quite like, something that we think might well work, and write it down on a clean piece of paper. Now, the other thing is to consider the possibilities of categories. Now, this is a kind of crafting idea, really. Songs, generally speaking, fall into a number of categories, three main ones: story songs, advice songs, and description songs. So a story song, quite obviously, tells the story of a situation that's happening or has happened. It might be historic. Lots of folk songs that tell stories, for example. Lots of rock songs that tell stories. Smoke on the Water, for example, from Deep Purple, tells the story of what happened when the studio that they were recording in caught fire and burnt down. Then another category is the description category. So describing a feeling, for example, or a place or a person. Okay. So describing a place, there's a really good example of that. That might be the Love Shack by the B-52s. Describing a feeling, John Lennon's Jealous Guy is a really good example. And then advice, songs that tell advice, that give advice. It might be from one person to another, or it might be from the singer to the crowd. So get up and dance, or shake your thing, or whatever. They're all kind of advice of one sort or another. But they may also be rather more narrative. So advice given to a particular person. So Stand By Your Man, for example, Tammy Wynette's classic. Or Aretha Franklin's Think from the Blues Brothers. Really good example of an advice song. Then there are a couple of other kind of subcategories, if you like, you might want to consider. First of all, lists. Now, lists put a lot of strain on the songwriting process, but the idea of a list song is a pretty established thing. Billy Joel's song We Didn't Start the Fire is worth checking out. And also Ian Dury's absolute masterpiece, Reasons to Be Cheerful. So check those out if you're interested in list songs. They're really good. And of course there's the personal perspective song, the very personal songs, the songs that could only come from one person or written in the first person. So a good example of that would be Stevie Wonder's I Wish or Carole King's It's Too Late. So let's go back to what we were looking at before and look at ways in which we can craft our lyric from the ideas either in our head or from the random material we've looked at already. I'm going to take just an example from the work that we've done before, a clipping from one of the newspaper cut-ups. And this one came from, I can't remember which paper it was from, doesn't really matter, but it's here we go, just from the top. Okay, so this is a clip that says, "Remember when you were the star of the story." Okay, so I would probably take that and maybe take away the remember bit and hang on to when you were the star of the story. So I'm going to write that new and fresh and clean in an attempt to start to get organised. So now let's quickly consider those three categories that we talked about before: description, story, advice. Okay, which of those kind of seems most to fit with that working title, when you were the star of the story? There's also a big clue in there, there's a big hook in there, which is the you. So it gives us a point of view to think about as well. It seems as though the title is telling us that this song is sung by somebody who is making observations or is telling the story as opposed to the person about whom the story is. Many of you may already know that songs are, generally speaking, divided into different sections: verses, choruses, pre-choruses, bridges, middle eights, instrumental breaks. They all are very common in the structuring of a song. How we approach those elements of the song has no influence on genre. It doesn't matter whether you're writing thrash metal, country, new folk, a ballad, or a fast dance song or whatever. You will have some relationship with that as a structure. If you want to play with the structures, that's great. Some people really enjoy messing with the structure of a song. A most classic example of that would be Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, which just goes into new section after new section after new section and very rarely repeats any particular bit. But for our purposes, let's look at some fairly well-established structures for songs. And first of all, we're going to look at what makes a verse. Now, the main part of the song, the most important, if you like, in terms of information, description, storyline or whatever, is going to be in the verse. And give yourself plenty of space in the verse to write. It could be, 6, 8, 10, 12 lines long even, before you get to the chorus. And another thing you can work with, which is really handy, is to not necessarily feel as though every line has to be the same length. Okay, so you might have a long line followed by a short line. You might have 2 long lines, 2 short lines, 2 long lines, 2 short lines. All this, as you probably gathered, is about structure. It's about finding ways of filling in the structure, but giving yourself a structure to play with. The other element is rhyme. Not all of us like rhymes. Some of us find rhyme limiting, and it's certainly true that some of the best songwriters don't use rhyme as many as the others. But there are some really, really clever songwriters out there who make sense of the rhyme and actually use the rhyme to help craft and give interest to what we're expecting to hear. So rhyme schemes, AA, BB, that means the first 2 lines rhyme with the second 2 lines. AA, BB, CC, obviously 2, 2, 2. But also, of course, AB, AB, or AB, CC, AB, CC. If you look at lyrics you know from your own taste and your own favourite artists, you'll see that there will be rhyme schemes involved. And before you start thinking too much about actually what the detail of the lyric is, sometimes it's quite cool to set yourself out a rhyme scheme. So you know you're going to work with, you might have the first line in your head. So that gives you A, and then possibly another A, and then go BB, and then maybe CC, and then maybe AA again. But if you give yourself those rhyme schemes, again, you've got something to work with and something to work towards. Then we come to the chorus. Now, the chorus is the shorter, hooky, memorable piece of the song. It's the same every time. And it's sometimes quite difficult to come up with a chorus, but I'm going to let you into a secret. You've already got it. Your working title can be your chorus. Just go back to it. Sing your title 4 times. In our case, when you were the star of the story, 4 times round, that's pretty much it. You've got your chorus. It may change, of course, but as you create the song, as it comes together, use that at least to start with. And if anything else comes into your head, then great. But that's enough to be going on with. Now, the bridge, or the pre-chorus, or the middle eight, as some people call it, is an opportunity to put a fresh perspective on the material that you're putting across. It can be used very neatly as a link from the verse, if you like, into the chorus, hence the term pre-chorus. In the case of a bridge, it's a standalone piece. And a bridge we'll probably only hear once. But it's an opportunity to break the song down a bit, to break the lyric down a bit, and look at a fresh perspective on the material. It's probably something you've got ideas from in your verse creation. There may well be stuff that doesn't flow very easily, or it's not coming quite, and doesn't fit as well as some of the other stuff does. So just bank that and maybe that can form the basis of your bridge. The rhyming scheme can be different again. It gives the bridge specific identity, same for a pre-chorus. So there we have different ways in which we can use structures to create skeletons, if you like, for our lyric, and then fill those out according to whichever song we want to make. We've looked at verses, we've looked at choruses, and we've looked at the bridge pre-chorus idea. We'll be looking at ways of setting those later in these videos, but in the meantime I would really encourage you to go and have a look online at the lyrics of the artists that you are interested in and see how those lyrics are laid out and the ways in which the rhyme schemes work, or the choruses repeat the same thing over and over again, just to get some ideas, and then you can kind of use those, incorporate those into your own work.